Sultanate. Top Kapi Palace. Second courtyard. Upon passing the middle gate, the visitor enters the second courtyard, or divan square, which was a park full of peacocks and gazelles, used as a gathering place for courtiers. This courtyard is considered the outer one. Only the Sultan was allowed to ride on the black pebbled walks that lead to the third courtyard. The courtyard was completed probably around 1465 during the reign of Mehmed II, but received its final appearance around 1525 to 1529 during the reign of Suleiman I. This courtyard is surrounded by the former palace hospital, bakery, janissary quarters, stables, the imperial harem and divan to the north and the kitchens to the south. The whole area is unified by a continuous marble colonnade, creating an ensemble. Numerous artifacts from the Roman and Byzantine periods have been found on the palace site during recent excavations. They are on display in the second courtyard in front of the imperial kitchens. Located underneath the second courtyard is a cistern that dates to Byzantine times. It is normally closed to the public. The second courtyard was primarily used by the Sultan to dispense justice and hold audiences. This was done here also to impress visitors. Second courtyard. Imperial carriages. Directly behind the Gate of Salutation, on the northeast side, the imperial carriages are temporarily exhibited in the former outer stables and harness rooms. This is a relatively low building, altered in 1735 when a new ceiling was installed. Its roof is one of the few undomed roofs to retain its 15th century shape. Many carriages were destroyed in a fire in the previous stables in the late 19th century. The carriages on display are some of the Sultan's carriages, including the state carriage, the carriage of the Valide Sultan, Queen Mother, and minor court carriages. Some of the carriages were foreign-made vehicles that were imported for the court. Located next to the carriages to the north are the extensive palace kitchens. Second courtyard. Palace kitchens. The elongated palace kitchens are a prominent feature of the palace. Some of the kitchens were first built in the 15th century at the time when the palace was constructed. They were modeled on the kitchens of the Sultan's palace at Edirne. They were enlarged during the reign of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent but burned down in 1574. The kitchens were remodeled and brought up to date according to the needs of the day by the court architect Memarsenin. They form 2 rows of 20 wide chimneys, rising like stacks from a ship from domes on octagonal drums. The kitchens are arranged on an internal street stretching between the second courtyard and the Sea of Marmara. The entrance to this section is through the 3 doors in the portico of the second courtyard: the Imperial Commissariat, Lower Kitchen Door, Imperial Kitchen Door and the Confectionery Kitchen Door. The palace kitchens consist of 10 domed buildings: Imperial Kitchen, Palace School, the outer service section of the palace kitchens, Beverages Kitchen, Creamery, storerooms and rooms for the cooks. They were the largest kitchens in the Ottoman Empire. Apart from exhibiting kitchen utensils, today the buildings contain a silver gift and utensils collection, as well as large collections of Chinese porcelain. Second courtyard. Palace kitchens. Porcelain and celadon collection. Chinese and Far East porcelain was highly valued and was transported by camel caravans over the Silk Road or by sea. The 10,700 pieces of Chinese and Japanese porcelain displayed here are rare, precious and thought to rival that found in China as one of the finest collections in the world. The Chinese porcelain collection ranges from the late Song Dynasty, 960–1279, and the Yuan Dynasty, 1280 to 1368, through the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, to the Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1912. This museum also contains one of the world's largest collections of 14th-century Longquan celadon. The collection has around 3,000 pieces of Yuan and Ming dynasty celadons. Those celadon were valued by the Sultan and the Queen Mother because it was supposed to change color if the food or drink it carried was poisoned. The Japanese collection is mainly Imari porcelain, dating from the 17th to the 19th century. Further parts of the collection include white porcelain from the beginning of the 15th century and imitation, blue and white and Imari porcelain from Vietnam, Thailand and Persia. Second courtyard. Imperial stables. Located on the other side of the courtyard, around 5 to 6 meters below ground level, are the imperial stables. The stables include the privy stables and were constructed under Mehmed II and renovated under Suleiman. They house the horses that only Sultan and high-ranked people of Mandarin rode. A vast collection of harness treasures is kept in the privy stables. Also located there is the small 18th-century mosque and bath of the chief black eunuch of Mahmud I. Second courtyard. Dormitories of the halberdiers with dresses. At the end of the imperial stables are the dormitories of the halberdiers with dresses. These quarters were used by a corps that was responsible for carrying wood to the palace rooms, cleaning and serving service for the harem in the quarters of the male pages, moving furniture and acting as masters of ceremonies. The halberdiers wore long tresses to signify their higher position. The first mention of this corps is around 1527. When they were established to clear the roads ahead of the army during a campaign. The dormitory was founded in the 15th century. It was enlarged by the chief architect Davud Agha in 1587, during the reign of Sultan Murad III. The dormitories are constructed around a main courtyard in the traditional layout of an Ottoman house, with baths and a mosque, as well as recreational rooms such as a pipe room. On the outside and inside of the complex, many pious foundation inscriptions about the various duties and upkeep of the quarters can be found. In contrast to the rest of the palace, the quarters are constructed by wood, which is painted in red and green. Second courtyard. Imperial Council. The Imperial Council building is the chamber in which the ministers of state, council ministers, the Imperial Council, consisting of the Grand Vizier, viziers, and other leading officials of the Ottoman state, held meetings. It is also called Kabilti, which means under the dome, in reference to the dome in the council main hall. It is situated in the northwestern corner of the courtyard next to the Gate of Felicity. The first council chambers in the palace were built during the reign of Mehmed II, and the present building dates from the period of Suleiman the Magnificent by the chief architect Al-Sidin. It has since undergone several changes, was much damaged and restored after the Harem fire of 1665. And according to the entrance inscription it was also restored during the periods of Selim III and Mahmud II. From the 18th century onwards, the place began to lose its original importance, as state administration was gradually transferred to the Sublime Porte of the Grand Viziers. The last meeting of the council in the palace chambers was held on Wednesday, August 30, 1876. The council hall has multiple entrances both from inside the palace and from the courtyard. The porch consists of multiple marble and porphyry pillars, with an ornate green and white-colored wooden ceiling decorated with gold. The floor is covered in marble. The entrances into the hall from outside are in the Rococo style, with gilded grilles to admit natural light. While the pillars are earlier Ottoman style, the wall paintings and decorations are from the later Rococo period. Inside, the Imperial Council building consists of 3 adjoining main rooms. 2 of the 3 domed chambers of this building open into the porch and the courtyard. The Divan, built with a wooden portico at the corner of the Divan Court, Divan Maidani, in the 15th century, was later used as the mosque of the council but was removed in 1916. There are 3 domed chambers. The first chamber where the Imperial Council held its deliberations is the Kabilti. The second chamber was occupied by the secretarial staff of the Imperial Divan, and in the adjacent third chamber called Defterhane, records were kept by the head clerks. The last room also served as a document archive. On its facade are verse inscriptions, which mention the restoration work carried out in 1792 and 1819, namely under Sultan Selim III and Mahmud II. The Rococo decorations on the facade and inside the Imperial Council date from this period. The main chamber Kabilti is, however, decorated with Ottoman Kütahya tiles. 3 long sofas along the sides were the seats for the officials, with a small hearth in the middle. The small gilded ball that hangs from the ceiling represents the earth. It is placed in front of the Sultan's window and symbolizes him dispensing justice to the world, as well as keeping the powers of his viziers in check. In the Imperial Council meetings, the political, administrative and religious affairs of the state and important concerns of the citizens were discussed. The Imperial Council normally met 4 times a week after prayer at dawn. The meetings of the Imperial Council were run according to an elaborate and strict protocol. Council members met here to discuss and decide the affairs of state. Second courtyard. Tower of Justice. The Tower of Justice, which is referred as Adale Kulesi in Turkish, is located between the Imperial Council and the Harem. The tower is several stories high and the tallest structure in the palace, making it clearly visible from the Bosporus as a landmark. The tower was probably originally constructed under Mehmed II and then renovated and enlarged by Suleiman I. Sultan Mahmud II rebuilt the lantern of the tower in 1825 while retaining the Ottoman base. The tall windows with engaged columns and the Renaissance pediments evoke the Palladian style. The tower symbolizes the eternal vigilance of the Sultan against injustice. Everyone from afar was supposed to be able to see the tower to feel assured about the Sultan's presence. The tower was also used by the Sultan for viewing pleasures. The old tower used to have grilled windows, enabling him to see without being seen, added to the aura of seclusion. The golden window in the Imperial Council is accessible through the Tower of Justice, thus adding to the importance of the symbolism of justice. Second Courtyard. Imperial Treasury. The building where the arms and armor are exhibited was originally one of the palace treasuries. Since there was another, inner, treasury in the third courtyard, this one was also called outer treasury. Although it contains no dated inscriptions, its construction technique and plan suggest that it was built at the end of the 15th century during the reign of Suleiman I. It subsequently underwent numerous alterations and renovations. It is a hall built of stone and brick with 8 domes, each 5 for 11.40 meters. This treasury was used to finance the administration of the state. The kaftans given as presents to the viziers, ambassadors and residents of the palace by the financial department and the sultan and other valuable objects were also stored here. The janissaries were paid their quarterly wages, called yulaf in Turkish, from this treasury, which was closed by the imperial seal entrusted to the Grand Vizier. In 1928, 4 years after the Topkapi Palace was converted into a museum, its collection of arms and armor was put on exhibition in this building. During excavations in 1937 in front of this building, remains of a religious Byzantine building dating from the 5th century were found. Since it could not be identified with any of the churches known to have been built on the palace site, it is now known as the Basilica of the Topkapi Palace, or simply Palace Basilica. Also located outside the Treasury building is a target stone which is over 2 meters tall. This stone was erected in commemoration of a record rifle shot by Selim III in 1790. It was brought to the palace from Levant in the 1930s. Second Courtyard. Imperial Treasury. Arms Collection. The arms collection, which consists primarily of weapons that remained in the palace at the time of its conversion, is one of the richest assemblages of Islamic arms in the world, with examples spanning a period of 1,300 years from the 7th to the 20th century. The palace's collection of arms and armor consists of objects manufactured by the Ottomans themselves, or gathered from foreign conquests, or given as presents. Ottoman weapons form the bulk of the collection, but it also includes examples of Umayyad and Abbasid swords, as well as Mamluk and Persian armor, helmets, swords and axes. A lesser number of European and Asian arms make up the remainder of the collection. Currently on exhibition are some 400 weapons, most of which bear inscriptions. Second Courtyard. Gate of Felicity. The Gate of Felicity, the entrance into the inner court, in Darun, also known as the Third Courtyard, marking the border to the outer court or Birun. The Third Courtyard comprises the private and residential areas of the palace. The gate has a dome supported by lean marble pillars. It represents the presence of the Sultan in the palace. No one could pass this gate without the authority of the Sultan. Even the Grand Vizier was only granted authorization on specified days and under specified conditions. The gate was probably constructed under Mehmed II in the 15th century. It was redecorated in the Rococo style in 1774 under Sultan Mustafa III and during the reign of Mahmud II. The gate is further decorated with Quranic verses above the entrance and tugras. The ceiling is partly painted and gold-leafed, with a golden ball hanging from the middle. The sides have Baroque decorative elements and miniature paintings of landscapes. The Sultan used this gate in the Divan Maidani Square only for special ceremonies. The Sultan sat before the gate on his Bayram throne on religious, festive days and accession, when the subjects and officials performed their homage standing. The funerals of the Sultan were also conducted in front of the gate. On either side of this colonnaded passage, under control of the chief eunuch of the Sultan's harem and the staff under him, were the quarters of the eunuchs as well as the small and large rooms of the palace school. The small, indented stone on the ground in front of the gate marks the place where the banner of the Prophet Muhammad was unfurled. The Grand Vizier or the commander going to war was entrusted with this banner in a solemn ceremony.